Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I am joined today by Danielle Caldwell of Danielle Caldwell Events. Late on a Wednesday, I appreciate you taking the time, and anybody that just kind of goes above and beyond scheduling and finding time to do this, I do really appreciate it, and I do think it speaks volumes for just people's dedication and really trying to make things work. So thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am Danielle Caldwell. I am the woman behind Danielle Caldwell Events. I am a boutique wedding and event planning company. I've been in the industry for well over 10 years and started my company about 3 years ago after I had one of my kids, and since then I've had another one. So yeah, I specialize in weddings, special events, corporate events, but mainly weddings and corporate events.
And how have you been doing this year? Are you ready for the summer to be over? Are you a glutton for punishment? What do you think?
So the crazy thing about my company is I am a boutique, and I am also on the side, which is funny to some people, a stay-at-home mom to my two kids. So I actually only take on anywhere from 8 to 10 clients a year, and typically only one event per month because I have a few other things to do. And I also, when I work with my clients, I really have that one-on-one relationship with them, and I want them to know that I can be there whenever they need within realistic expectations, of course. And so I find that if I just do one per month, that I can give them that one-on-one attention that they need and not dilute too much into my kid's life and my husband's life. So yeah, I try to have a nice balancing act. So actually, I'm still going strong. Everybody I know in the industry is mostly like, yes, the big season's almost over. And for me, actually, November and December are some of my biggest events. I had a few during the summer, but I'm also already helping brides, grooms, and corporations plan events for 2020. So never a dull moment.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it is that fine line between, wanting to be a planner and, kind of be at the beck and call, and then, where it kind of gets the line. We had an open house here on last week, and the planner that put it on, this woman came in and probably talked to her for about 45 minutes of the 4 hours we were there. And I said, are you, is she your client yet? Are you talking to her? She goes, no, she's not my client. I said, well, that might be a red flag if she's sitting here for an hour talking, because, like you said, you kind of want to walk that line. So, but that's great. So what kinds of clients do you find that are attracted to you and kind of your style? Like you said, you really do focus on that one-on-one, but what kinds of events and clients do you like to work with?
A lot of my clients have really been going after my partial package, which is me helping them with rentals and floral. And not that I do floral, I only do planning. I am not that talented. I mean, I am, but I know that there's plenty of planners out there that try to do both, and I just would never be able to do that. So all props to them. But as far as the clientele that I am attracting, I mean, I would say, are you talking like age range? I mean, it's kind of all over the board. They really like my aesthetic and what they see on my Instagram. They're really looking for someone to guide them through the process and kind of allow them to think outside of the box. And a lot of the ones that tend to gravitate towards me are having these bigger weddings. I actually love a small wedding too. And I have one client who's having a smaller wedding of 80 next year, but a lot of my clients have anywhere from 120 to sometimes 300 people. Even some of my corporate clients, I've did corporate parties last year for 400 and for 1,000. And the funny thing is the size doesn't scare me at all. I know sometimes I tell people that I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot. It's just making sure you have all the details, and that's really what planners and coordinators do is planners more or less bring together the details after they help them plan it, but really coordinating all of these different vendors, whether it be videographers, photographers, the caterers, the florists, people like Letters and Dust or Crave who do stationery and signage. I mean, there's so many different vendors that go into it. Especially with my clients, they're not wanting a one-stop shop. They're wanting to gravitate to like sometimes 3 or 4 different rental companies, which I know that rental companies would rather them get everything from them, but honestly, sometimes that's just not possible from what they carry, and just the different items. And, some like to collaborate with other rental companies and some don't. So yeah, I mean, one of my upcoming weddings, I think we have 5 different rental companies we're working with, and I think there's like 16 vendors total that I'm coordinating with. But I love what I do, and my clients can tell because I'm always super excited for their ideas when they bring them to me. And I think that's really a huge portion of why I started my company, because I really do enjoy that design aspect of it and the customer service aspect of it. And honestly, collaborating with vendors is just so much fun. So seeing something come to life on the day of the wedding or day of the event is really pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, it really is, weddings and, kind of whatever field you're in or specialty you're in weddings. I mean, I do think it lends itself to more of a personal relationship. I mean, like we're trying to coordinate a wedding for Saturday, and, the groom's texting me because he's trying to figure out stuff. And, and you're like, well, I don't know, are you texting the plumber at 10 o'clock at night? Are you, but you might be texting your videographer, your planner, and saying, hey, we got a question about this, or what do you think? And you just, the first time he said, I'm really sorry, this email comes across super casual. And I said, no, man, it's 10 o'clock. I said, I get it. You've worked all day. Like, I understand, but it is weird just how we, the clients do feel. And I have to assume, especially as a planner and coordinator, that they just definitely feel that connection with you.
Yeah. I mean, I tell my clients once they sign me that, I guess, so I'm from New York originally. I don't know if you know that. I was born and raised right outside New York City in Westchester County. And I've only been in Portland for 8 years. It was 8 years this past August. We moved here because my husband worked for Intel. And I love it here. But with that being said, New York is a very high-powered place. I mean, I started my career in New York City at Institutional Investor doing high-end corporate conferences and galas for asset managers, hedge funds, and bringing them together with their clients. So for me, I'm used to a super fast-paced environment. And it's funny because when I moved here, I started working for Lewis and Clark College as their event coordinator and made my way up to associate director before I left. And my boss, who I absolutely love, I actually still keep in touch with her, was like, you just need to go New Yorker on them. Like, pick up the pace, people. And I was just like, well, Portland is a little different. It's going to be some time to get used to. And that's great. I do find a lot of the people that reach out to me love the fact that I am high impact to a degree. I have definitely softened over the 8 years, and having 2 kids has definitely softened that. But it's still there. Even my husband will laugh at me and say, you're still, you could totally still fit into New York if you wanted to. But because of that, the positives and negatives of it is I work, I'm used to, if a client needs me at 9 o'clock at night and I'm still awake, I still answer my email if I see it. Sometimes I put my phone away, and that's super healthy too. But for me, I'm up by 6 a.m. every day, and if I see an urgent email from a client or a vendor, I'm going to respond to it. I am not the person who's going to have the 9 to 5 hours because I just can't. As I said, I have 2 kids. I have coverage for them. My oldest is actually in preschool 4 mornings a week, but my youngest, I only have coverage for 2 mornings a week. And then I have sitters and nights and weekends, which is a great time for weddings. to meet with brides and grooms, because that's when they are, available. And I go to them. I work out of my house, so they like the fact that I'm coming to them, where we can meet either at a coffee shop or at, like, some of them, when they really get to know me, bring them into their apartment or house. An Indian wedding I worked with, the clients, they actually loved coming to my house at like 8 o'clock at night, and we would talk for 2 to 3 hours. And I'm really okay with that. So I think having that flexibility for my clients, knowing they are getting that one-on-one service, and yeah, I mean, they know that if I'm not available, I'm not going to answer. But the majority of them, I get back to them within a couple of hours of their email. And I always let them know if I'm going to travel and be like, hey, like, I could be going to the West Coast or the East Coast, I should say. And I may not answer your email right away because, number one, it's a 3-hour time difference. And two, I probably just got off the plane for 5 hours with 2 kids and need some space. But they completely, all of them for the most part, really respect the boundaries of it and just love the fact that if they needed something at 8:30 at night, if they wanted an opinion, that they can send me a message on Instagram or an email or a text message, and I will get back to them most likely right away.
No, it is good to be, that vendor. I try to be pretty responsive to, where they expect that, and then they almost think like something's wrong if like you don't respond, they're like, oh, something must be going on. But, it does kind of set you up then. Cause I always feel like now I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get right back. Cause they just get used to that. And then they just, but I guess it's a good problem to have, but then they do kind of expect that, once you hit them with that from the beginning, they kind of expect that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the great thing about the model I have set up is that I only take on a certain amount of clients. So, when I hear some planners saying like, oh, I have like, my team has 4 weddings at like weekends, never mind that month. And if I ever had taken on that many, there's no way I could have that kind of response rate because, let's face it, I mean, there's just no way. So by having only 8 to 10 clients a year, by doing it once a month, even if they're trying to contact me like that a few times, I mean, it doesn't get overwhelming, which is nice. And I'm also going after, I do charge a premium price. I mean, not to sound, crazy or anything, but for me, when I look at weddings and their budgets, I'm looking at minimum to work with clients that have like a budget of $250 to $300 per person. And I mean, that's like, if you're having like, 200 people, you divide that out by the biggest amount that you could put towards your wedding. And not everybody can afford that. But, I really try to be crystal clear with my clients, during their consultations, and all my consultations happen either in person or Skype or FaceTime so I can see their faces. And, really understanding who they are, where they're from, what they're all about, like what brought them together with, their fiance, and really just forming that relationship with them. But this way, if I'm able to tell that their budget's going to be too tight, and, by having a few weddings, already that, I've gone through with the company, you learn more and more. But I've learned that it's honestly, like, as much as I want to work with certain clients because they're so fabulous on the initial consult, if their budget just seems too tight for me, I actually tell them that I'm not a great fit, because it would be a disservice to them for me to be taking, a certain part of their budget to use for me when they really could be using it towards something else that is truly their vision. I mean, us planners, we do work magic, but we are not Mary Poppins.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking, I've worked with a multitude of planners kind of over the last, month or so, and, just seeing different styles. And like you said, you tend to be a little more, impactful, which I think is good because I do think that's the role sometimes is the planner is to kind of be the heavy. And if something, we were at a venue last week and they had this big fountain going, and I had asked the management, I said, hey, this might be kind of weird. Like, has anybody ever asked you, like, can we turn that off during the ceremony? Because it's really loud and, trying to record everything. And she said, well, I don't know, you're going to have to talk to the planner. You're gonna have to talk to me. I said, okay. So I went up to Katie and I said, hey, can you just let the bride kind of know, my concerns there? She goes, don't worry, take care of it. And she comes back 5 minutes later. She's like, yeah, the fountain's going to be off. And I was like, okay, perfect. Like, yeah, I said, not that we, and it would have been fine either way. But I'm like, I'm glad that you can just kind of take that on and, you can kind of figure that out because, a lot of other planners might say, well, I don't know, or what do you think? Or we don't, and sometimes it's like, you just got 2 minutes and you just need to kind of make a decision and, figure it out. And, I'm sure she told the bride, hey, if you trust your videographer, he wants it off. I think we need to have it off. Like, okay, but we can take care of it and move on as opposed to, having to be stressed later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest roles for people like me is really, to be an advocate for the couple, but also to make sure that the vendors are, have what they need because, the client is hiring you for a reason. They know that you're really good at what you do. And so we want to provide you the best setting to do your job really well so that you can just deliver everything that the client expects from you within the agreed upon terms. And so, yeah, stuff like that is super important for us to be on top of. And sometimes it does actually mean making an executive decision for the client, saying like, hey, like, you want a certain look and feel and you're having it videoed, or even just if they weren't having it videoed. I mean, stuff like that, those are the small details that, all of us really have to be on top of. And that means sometimes having one or two extra people on your team on site with you so that you can notice those details or taking the extra time to do walkthroughs of the actual venue. And that's something that I really tried to do with my client even the week before so that, details like a fountain or details like how the sun is coming in with natural lighting and everything else. All those things can be addressed to make sure that everything is pretty much set up. And not that you're ever going to get every single detail. You're always going to be troubleshooting the day of. But, that's why you hire people like us.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I'm always, it's like you said, you're always trying to be an advocate for what's best. And yeah, it is kind of making those exec decisions or asking people to do stuff or, we need to move that or this can't be here or that can't be or, and sometimes I'm sure even other people are like, wow, this, Reed's being insane or whatever. But, you do ultimately, like you said, you're being hired and you want them to have that vision. And if it's, like I had to track down we were doing all these family formals and stuff last weekend. They had all these candles and stuff. And I said, hey, do you think we can get all this stuff lit here? And the venue, well, we don't know because we normally don't like that. I said, well, we're going to do about 45 minutes worth of photos here, all their family photos that are going to hang on their wall for the next 30 years. Like, do you think we could get that? It'd be nice if we could get that lit for them as opposed to having 50 unlit candles behind them. But it's like, yeah, you totally could just say, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's like, it's tough for me to kind of, not do that. And they did not, have a planner. So of course the photographers and I, were kind of trying to figure out all that stuff on the fly and, they're trying to take the portraits as well. So.
Yeah, that is a struggle. And I feel so bad for vendors when I find out like they did not hire a planner. Because I feel like it's honestly just about education, as far as educating the client, what role people have and the fact that, we want them to have this, perfect day. And, sometimes when, venue managers are great, they're super important. I have some of my closest friends are venue managers. But their role is not ours. I know that there is a few venues out here that do have that extra support. But again, it's not the same person as a venue manager. It's an additional support. And I don't think that when brides and grooms are viewing these places that they really understand the difference. Yes, I mean, those people are going to be making sure that the heat is on if it's in the middle of winter or the AC. And they're going to be making sure that the restrooms are stocked and everything else, and that the room is set, to what the venue is responsible for. But I mean, I remember one of my first weddings for my company, the bride, right after her first dance, got red wine spilled all over her white gown. And I had an assistant on site with me, And literally the maid of honor came down and grabbed my wrist, like not mean or anything, just like, Danielle, she needs you right away. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, well, you go do this. So I know that this is ready to go. And I'm sitting there and she's just like, we are so glad that you were here, because if they had gone to the venue manager, I mean, the person was doing what they were supposed to be doing, but they were sitting in an office. Whereas I'm grabbing every single like wipe I have. I always bring shout wipes with me. I provide bathroom baskets for all my clients for the men's, women's, and the bridal suite. And so I'm like grabbing literally every shout wipe. And the thing, it came out of the dress. But she's like, oh my God, like, if you weren't here, like, I don't even know what we would have done. I'm like, well, you would have figured it out. I mean, somebody would have gotten soda water or something. I mean, you would have made do. But yes, like, these are the things that we're here for. Like, one of my last brides, her dress is gorgeous, but so heavy. And I had to literally, like, her maid of honor / her sister was amazing at buckling the dress. Like, the two of us were doing it together. But that thing came apart like 15 times because it was so heavy and just not buckled. It wasn't set up to be buckled properly. And I mean, her mother even like went to the extent of like making this video. So I actually studied how to buckle this dress before, and thank God I did, because I was literally buckling it all night. Every time she sat down, it would pop out. But again, like, those are the things that brides and grooms don't realize of what we do. Those little details, whether it's, making sure that all the escort cards are placed out properly, or that everything's straight on the table, or that, the chairs are clean. So many times I show up to some of these places and I'm literally cleaning the chairs with wet ones because there's like stains from it being in storage. All those little details we make sure that we take care of. And on top of it, making sure that the bride and the groom and their wedding party, or the bride and groom, I mean, the couple in general and their families are just always taken care of. Going that extra step. And, unfortunately, when they don't hire a wedding planner, it normally tends to fall to the videographer and the photographer, and sometimes the caterer. And then you can't do what you really do best because you're trying to, double focus on something.
No, yeah. When we got married, our venue had, same kind of deal, had a, I guess, on-site manager, whatever you want to call it. And, because I advocated and won, the decision to hire a planner. And I remember talking to my wife about it, and I said, no, because for the most, like you said, certain, some venues are different, but for the most part, like, they're wanting, like, their main concern is like, is the food served on time? Are the tables moved for, cocktail hour? Not, is the marriage license on site? Is your dress bustled correctly? Are everybody lined up for this? Did the rings make it from wherever? All these other things, they're just focused on like the physical logistics of their, and like our site person, the second dinner was served, they're like, all right, we're done, they're done with that role now. And then, if you don't have a planner or coordinator, who the hell figures out the rest of the night,
Yep. And I mean, if stuff needs to shift because it was raining during our photo time and you wanted to get outside and do something, or, toast ran late, or you decided at the last minute this was the order, who's communicating that to everybody? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're always, timelines, super important. We always try to stick with them, but I mean, it's a wedding, it's a celebration. Like, you're sometimes going to be 5 or 10 minutes late. So who's going to be texting, especially if you're having a plated meal, who's texting your caterer to make sure, or on the radio with them, more or less. That's what I typically do, to make sure, like, hey, like, hold up 5 minutes, hold up 10 minutes. We're just finishing up the last thing or two. Or, they snuck out. They were a little late because they had to say hi to this table or that table. And now they're coming back in. And so even though toasts were supposed to be like 10 minutes ago, they're probably going to be another 10 minutes. So just keep it lively and everything else, and we'll be in and all will be well. And normally it does really run pretty seamless. And, but again, like, you do need that communication. And it's really hard when you don't have somebody who is literally set in charge to make sure that communication happens.
Yeah, this is my last story, and then we'll move on. I just laughed. Our wedding on was it this? We had 2 back-to-back at the same venue. I can't remember which one it was, but we moved everything up by like half an hour because there was a smaller guest count and cocktail hour. Just they talked to everybody, and so I go up to the DJ and I said, "Hey man, so, I know that toasts were originally at 8:15, but we're half an hour ahead. So, am I safe to say they're going to be at 7:45? What are you thinking? What's going on?" He goes, I really have no idea. I just kind of play it by ear. He goes, "I'm just going to kind of see what they want to do." And I'm like, that's not an answer right now at, at 7:30. Like, I don't find that an acceptable answer. Like, I don't accept what you're telling me right now, because we do have a timeline. It is here, and everything was moved up. And so you can either say yes, you're correct, or no, you're not. But just saying like, well, I don't really know now. That's not. I said that just doesn't work for me.
That would bother me a little bit, but everybody. That's the thing about these things, though. I mean, because every client is different and every vibe, and that's why they do hire vendor teams that are really chosen by their vision and by their style. And maybe that works for some people. Personally, that does not work for me. That would drive me a little nuts, just like it sounds like it did for you. But they do fit certain clients, and that's great.
Yeah, that is funny. So let's talk about you. I want to hear about how you got into all this. You said you grew up in New York, you were working over there. So how did you, how did that go? And then you said you moved, the transition out here, but talk about getting into weddings and events and kind of wanting that to be your focus.
So I am that person who people don't like, because I kind of had an idea of what I wanted from a really early age. And I remember when picking out colleges, I told my parents, I'm like, I kind of want to go to school for hospitality because I really like event planning. And my parents, who are amazing, by the way, were like, well, that's really a niche kind of thing. And, my father's the oldest of 13 and my mom's the middle of 5. And I am like one of 28 first cousins. So like I come from a huge family. They've, and my mom was like, I just feel like you need something a little bit broader, like a business degree or something. This way you can do whatever you want when you get older. But I know that, if the economy ever crashed again or whatnot, that, I would know that you're okay. Because that's my mom. My mom is the planner, which wonder where I got that from. Even though she's a school teacher, she's an English teacher and she's great at what she does. And she is literally, my mom's ridiculous. I love her though. She's one of my best friends, even though she would always say, I'm not your friend, I'm your mother. Anyway, so I went to UNC Charlotte for undergrad and as per them went into their business program and did a concentrating in marketing. But throughout my college years, I did a ton of different internships, which I'm a huge advocate for people doing because you really don't know what you're getting into until you start working in it. So I did internships for people like UBS and Triple Creative Group and a few other people, a soccer team out there. It was semi-professional and, just dabbled in a bunch of stuff and honestly realized I truly did love what I was doing. I loved everything about the events world. And when I graduated, because, it's all about who you know and networking, one of my father's really good friends, who's still one of his good friends, who's even at my wedding, had a connection to institutional investor in New York City. And he actually did all the printing for their programs for their conferences. And so when he got news that one of their people was leaving, he got my resume right in. And I happened to be interviewing with a wedding planner who was flying me to New York while living in North Carolina. And so I went and I interviewed with both and got both jobs and was like, well, I think the corporate job is probably like more my style. It was also more money. And when you're at a college, you need more money. And so I did that and started the commute to Union Square for about 4 years. Some from my parents' house and then in the city. But I learned a ton about corporate conferences, about selling conferences, because I was always bringing asset managers and hedge funds together with their people. But I also got to dabble in corporate galas through that. It traveled a ton. I mean, all these things were at like 5-star resorts. And as glamorous as that sounds, when you are a corporate planner, you don't get to enjoy the 5-star resorts for maybe an hour. And that is like probably like the 5 hours you slept in the bed, which at that point you're like fine sleeping in the ballroom foyer. But the people there, they were awesome. I loved that job. And there was a part of me when I left it that I was like, I'm really going to miss this. But I could never do that with our lifestyle right now. So anyway, I met my husband during that time. We actually met online on eHarmony. So that was kind of cool. And he was moving to Arizona. He was finishing up his PhD. And so I took a leap of faith. Everybody thought I was nuts, and I moved to Arizona with him. And I got a job at the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess, which is a 5-star 5-diamond. And I was their concierge supervisor. And basically what that was a day-of coordinator for their people. But like I would take all the notes that their event managers would do and basically make it happen from the venue side. And working for a resort is exhausting. It is a large resort. There is tons of people, and I only had 2 people under me. And I would be in by 5 a.m. every day and wouldn't leave until about 6 o'clock at night, and would be dressed to the T. And they were all about customer service and, never disappointing people and just making the action happen. And I worked under conferences for a while and then got moved to their director of the DMC there, the Destination Management Company. So I not only did their conferences, but also helped with the weddings and some of the corporate outings. I did everything and learned a ton. I mean, these people submersed me and really got me to learn. During that time, and actually it started in New York, when I was in New York, I went to NYU and got a certificate in special events, meetings, weddings, and events. And so when I was in Arizona, I drove out to Vegas with my boyfriend at the time, Rob, who was the one who moved me, and ended up taking the CMP test because I thought I was going to stay in more meeting planning, and passed it, which was awesome because not everybody else does. And right when I passed it and when I started getting more promotion at the Fairmont, my husband graduated and Intel hired him, and I had to say goodbye to that job too because we were moving to Portland. Thanks, this time with the ring on my finger. And I could prove to everybody that it wasn't nuts for moving with that one. But yeah, so when we moved here, as I mentioned before, I started working for Lewis and Clark College, and I was doing mostly their internal events. And then one of the assistant directors left, and they saw that I was way overqualified for the job I had, and promoted me right away. And I took over their summer conference program, which is their biggest moneymaker from an event standpoint, and was able to grow that from like $130,000 profit to over $800,000 like in a year and a half. And so they saw what I did with that, and they're like, well, we haven't had weddings here in a while. Would you be interested in helping us create the wedding business here? And I was like, sure, let's do this. And so I spent about 2 years helping them with that and really got to work with some amazing wedding planners there. One of which, Lisa Worth, she's out of California, but she is pretty much a celebrity wedding planner. And it wasn't even about the celebrities. This woman has impeccable taste. She just knows how to run an event, a high-end event, knows how to take care of her clients, and knows how to talk to vendors and really just bring everybody together as a team. And after doing that wedding and obviously bunches of other weddings, and even getting to know the vendors out here more and more because we had to bring on, people like Party Place and West Coast Event Productions, and we had worked with Devil's Food and Vibrant Table and Art of Catering and a whole bunch of amazing people. And just learning really from them, more from a venue standpoint than from a coordinator standpoint. And it was amazing. And so after I had my first child, Sophia, my husband heard me. He's like, the amount of hours that you work, I just don't know if we can do it with my job, because Intel engineers just work crazy hours. And I was like, yeah, like we don't have any family out here. Like literally, we would be paying more in childcare than it's worth. And so I actually resigned, and then I learned about 4 months into my kid being born that I'm like, I don't know if being a stay-at-home mom is really my jam. I love my kid to death. I want to be around her as much as I can, but like, there's just like this section of my brain that is like, feed me stuff. And so I went back to Lewis and Clark College. I'm like, so funny story. I know I resigned, but and they actually they're like, well, we really need your ideas and your brain still a little bit, and we would love to try to make something work. So they hired me back basically as like a part-time, almost like a contractor type thing. It was I think it was like an event assistant position that they made, but it was really like I was working from home, helping with all the contracts that I had started with all these other people way back when, and worked from home, and then was in the office 1 day a week. And as for all those fellow moms out there, part-time work when you have kids is amazing. You need that. You need a balance if that's your thing. If you are really happy with being a stay-at-home mom and that's your jam, I love it. But that's not me. And then we knew that we wanted to have a second. And I'm like, you know what? I always said I wanted to start my own company. So why don't I just do it? And I was so naive. Oh my God. And I've loved everything about building my company. And honestly, all the different jobs I've had throughout my career, even like working ridiculous hours at the Fairmont, or like rebuilding the conference business at Lewis and Clark, or actually building their wedding business. All of those pieces were hugely beneficial for me. So if you're worried that you're not on this right track, I mean, people change jobs at all different times in their life. I mean, my husband just went from being an engineering manager to being supply chain at Intel, which similar in certain respects, completely different in a lot of other respects, and he's so much happier. He always loved his job at Intel, but it's just a different thing for him, and it's just something that he never even knew. Anyway, getting back onto me. I was so naive when I started my company. I thought that because I had known all these people at Lewis and Clark College, and because I had all these like corporate connections in New York, yada, 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 because everybody has connections, that like I would create a website and like proposals and prospects would be just pouring in. That doesn't happen when you create a company. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of networking, as you probably know. And, but you meet so many amazing people throughout the way. And honestly, all those people I met when I was working at Lewis and Clark College, people like Cindy LeBoon at Bridgewood, and Angela at Party Place, and Eric at Art of Catering. And there's so many others. It's hard to name everybody, but like all those people kind of were like, you should come in and we should talk, and let's help you in some way. Like, let's do some styled shoots. Let's get you into this network. Let's allow you to meet all these people and find your vendor group and get you clients. And even with all that help, it still takes a lot of work. But 3 years in, I'm about halfway sold out for next year, which is awesome. I still have plenty of spots, people. Please inquire. But, I've been featured now a few times, which is super exciting. And I've just met so many amazing people in this industry. And honestly, just working with new clients and I know it's a cliche to say thinking outside the box, but like you really do have to think outside the box with every new client and really take on their vision. And it's been awesome, and they all know that I have 2 kids at home, and that I have a husband that now travels, which has been that's been one of the negatives to my husband's new job that he loves, is the fact that he travels, but we make it work. But yeah, I love everything about this company. So, yeah, I hope that's the long version of what you were asking for, I think.
No, that's perfect. It's so funny, like you said, just kind of being naive starting out. I don't know if I've ever, can't remember if I've told the story on the podcast, but when the first wedding show we ever did was just like a new venue opened up and, like 12 vendors went, and I remember thinking like, oh man, I gotta print out contracts, so we can fill them out and people can sign them. And like, I remember thinking like, oh, I wonder if I printed out enough contracts, for all the weddings, that we're gonna book. And then I think like four people came through the whole day. Like we were there like 5 hours and talked to like four people. And I just, yeah, like you said, I'll just put up a website and they start coming. And I remember putting up my site and something was up or I needed to tweak something and I was like, oh, I gotta get home and I gotta fix it because everybody in the world's looking at the website right now. I gotta make sure it's all, and I'm sure it got 10 hits in the first 3 months. It wasn't like but it is just funny what you think about early on and then you look back and you think, yeah, that doesn't, yeah, how naive. What was maybe something, because a lot of vendors listen to this, maybe something that you thought would be easier that ended up being more challenging as a business owner, or that something that maybe you thought was going to be more challenging and then you ended up having a knack for it? I mean, just in terms of like kind of getting the ball rolling and figuring that stuff out.
Yeah. For me, I think something that I was surprised by was the design aspect. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that come into it, especially, some of the wedding planners that do like girly design. I feel like a lot of them kind of went to school for it too, and I didn't. And so I remember like being on my first styled shoot and being like, okay, like I gotta act like I know what I'm doing here. What do I do? Like I got all these vendors together. Like I did the coordination part, but where do I want them at? And like, why do I care about and I mean, this was like way in the very beginning. And I remember like finishing it, and I think it was Cindy who was there. She was like, yeah, like this is awesome. And I'm like, oh, you're just being nice. She's like, no, this looks really good. I'm like, oh, okay. And I've done one of the things that I really tried to do this past 3 years, in all honesty, especially the past 2 years. Well, let's be realistic. But I started a company in 2016, and literally a month later, I found out I was pregnant with Isabel. And for those of you who have been pregnant and have a toddler and are working part-time, and not to mention that I used to do a ton of nonprofit work. I was on the management team for a big nonprofit out here for 2 years, this being the first year that I'm not. I was a little like over my head. And so I didn't really do anything with the company until after Isabel was born. So, the last 2 years I have spent, if I don't have a wedding that month, I try to do a style shoot. And even my family is like, why would you do style shoots? Style shoots are amazing because one, you get to practice at things that you think you really stink at. And you find out what you're actually really good at. And then you also find out what you really stink at. Two, you find out like what awesome vendors, what they really are really good at. And you find out if they really do fit, your vision, and your aesthetic. And if they don't, but are still awesome to recommend because not every client is fitting your vision or aesthetic. So, and three, it's great marketing material. I mean, that was, I think, my biggest challenge, which I didn't realize, was the fact that although I had all of this great event experience, because, everybody goes to your website and goes immediately to your bio and says, oh, they have 12 years of experience, and that's what I'm hiring. Oh, she doesn't have a portfolio, but she has 12 years. We're good. Yeah, nobody does that. And so, those things are great for my portfolio building. But I digress. I thought I was going to have a huge issue with the whole design. And one of the things that I truly love, and it's actually one of the things that a lot of brides have hired me for. And they have been very, very happy, which makes me very happy. Of course, I mean, like every good designer, and I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a designer, but every, person who is trying to get to the next level in their career, you ask for help. There's a saying out there that if you're the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Well, that is so true. I mean, I remember going to, all different people and saying, like, I have this budget for this corporate event. How do I make the biggest thing? And they're like, well, lighting, of course. And so I'm like, oh, I never even thought about that. Like, you just ask people, and not to say you should be asking people for every direction for every single thing. That is not what I'm saying. If you're doing that, you don't belong having the company. Or you really should just go for get into a company that knows what they're doing and learn from it. Not to say that you shouldn't do something about it later on. But yeah, so that's one thing that I was like, oh man, it's going to be a real struggle, and it turned out to be something amazing. I think the other, really trying to figure out how to get to couples, get to the right target market. And I think that's what everybody's been struggling with lately. I don't think that's just me precisely, because, you have these Instagrams and you have Facebook, and let's face it, Facebook, as much as I love you and you connect me to the rest of the world, I don't know really where these brides and grooms are finding us. Print, I love magazines and everything else, but I don't know who is really picking up these magazines. What websites are they going to? What are they truly looking for? What are they truly searching for? You can say you have 12 million followers on Instagram, or somebody like me who I think is about to reach 800. Yay. But is that are the posts that we're putting on there really making an impact? Is that why I'm getting these clients? So I think that's something that I didn't realize I would struggle with. But finding the right avenues. And to me, in all honesty, 90% of the clients that I have signed, or that have hired me, I should say, have all been through referral basis. And I know that's a big part of the business. But I don't have a brick or mortar. So I can't necessarily show what I do. I mean, you have my portfolio, but, and that's growing. But yeah, how do you reach that right person? So I think that's something that I thought was going to be a lot easier. And as I said, I think everybody has that same struggle though.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially with and investing in certain ways to find people, and if you were all in on Facebook and then Facebook messes everything up, or you're all in on Instagram, or even now. I don't know about down in Portland, but there's a big thing right now with Wedding Wire and The Knot, where they're merging and they're really jacking up the Ciala pricing, and we're kind of relating that, I guess, even over to Spokane and Idaho. We just had a photographer that moved to Idaho, and they're trying to charge as much as here. And it's all this. If you were someone that spent the last 6 years only doing your Wedding Wire profile, and then you might be SOL, or if you've got 10,000 whatever on Facebook, and then they change the algorithm. It's so hard to kind of, I always say, just kind of diversify, because it is hard to figure out, maybe you get 2 from this and 1 from this and 1 from this and 1 from the, you don't, we have the wedding show up here, and I know that, people used to say, man, I go to the wedding show, I get 15, 20, if I'm a DJ, I get 15, 20 clients, no problem. And then, those same people now are saying, hey, I'm not going to do it again next year because, it's just not worth it, or stuff changes. And so it's so hard to figure that out. And like I said, I just always say, you got to make sure you diversify, because you never know when one stream is going to go, belly up, and then it's.
Yeah. I mean, I've done the online wedding wires. I never did The Knot, and I've done wedding shows before. And as much as I love meeting people in person, at the wedding shows, I find that it really depends upon which ones you choose to do. And, it's hard because, it also depends upon the type of client you're trying to reach. I find for my business, because I am a little bit higher priced than some other people, it's those that really hear about me. Because, for a lot of people, you go on the website and you see a price and you're like, well, that's totally out of my price range. Not realizing until you have that conversation what that price truly means. Because with a lot of my packages too, I tend to customize stuff. So, I've actually taken down some of the pricing from my website because I'm like, well, this is the starting point. Obviously, my complete package is not this price because I have two other packages below that. But let's have a discussion, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you want to make sure that you do get the right clients. And right clients could mean something different today than it could mean 2 years from now. But really finding out where that right target market that you're going after is hitting. And some of them are not going to bridal shows. Some of them are getting referrals from their friends who have been married, or are going on OregonBride.com, or going on the Knot and finding their planner and then going with their planner to the bridal shows, just to kind of see like different visions of what these other people have, because we all do our own setups. And then like saying like, oh, hey, like I really like the fact that they had like these hanging like orchids or something. Let's do that. And they may take your card, but that means that you're probably never getting a phone call from that anyway. We're also using it to find out what you really don't like. So, I mean, it's a challenge for everybody. When Facebook first came out, and really became like, that was where like a lot of people got their stuff, and now they've already built up that clientele, so it's already easy for them. Somebody like me, where Facebook, I've never gotten a single inquiry from there. I think I just have it because everybody has a Facebook business page. I think I had maybe like at most 250 followers on there. Instagram, I've never gotten an inquiry through Instagram, but I've had people come and see me and say, oh, I've seen your work on Instagram. I really like it. So it brought me to your website, and that's why I filled out the form. But yeah, I would say that's been my biggest thing of getting to those people. But I would also say that it's encouraged me, which is hugely important in this industry for anybody who's interested in getting into it, is networking. One thing I really took a lot of time to do was scour Instagram at some of the top planners, especially in this area, that I love their work on, and literally went through, I wouldn't say all of their posts because there's no way. I mean, like Bridal Bliss, I would still be looking at it 3 years later because they do so many weddings and they're all gorgeous. But like, a good chunk of them, and literally writing down every single vendor that they worked with. And then making spreadsheets on Google Drive, God bless Google Drive, because you can take it everywhere, of like videographers and photographers and caterers and florists and you name it, they're on there. And literally just, hey, sending them an email. Hey, I'm this person. This is my website. Like, let me buy you a cup of coffee. Let me do this. And honestly, like all last year, for the most part, my calendar was literally filled in the mornings that I had my kids covered, and at night, and on weekends when people were willing to do it, meeting with these people and just having chats with them. And, at first some of these people say, oh no, I don't do style shoots. But when they really get to know you and see like, oh, like you are like kind of legit, maybe we should give you a shot. Like sometimes you can get them to actually do a style shoot, and then they will make you work for it. And it's totally worth it because you learn so much. And, sometimes they'll get on the phone with you and say, well, like, what about this piece and this piece and da-da-da-da. And again, that's how you learn. And that's how you grow, and that's how you network. And then, they may not like how the style shoot goes at all. But for me, it was like, okay, I'm good with this. I can start referring you to my clients. So that, but it takes a lot of hard work. But you can do it. So, yeah.
No, I think that's great. I think that's just, in talking to different vendor types and figuring out, what information, can they give you that you can better inform, if you're a photographer, what should people know? If you're a florist, what should people, just you as the planner, you really do kind of have to be the ringleader of all that and kind of knowing enough about each vendor type to figure out like, what do we know here? And I mean, like the last couple of weddings I've had, it's been like a blind spot in terms of like DJs and logistics of that. I just have had a lot of coordinators lately that that whole aspect of it does just seem to be like a blind spot of like, well, no, we actually need this and the, as a videographer, I even know that, but they don't. And so, yeah, it's I would just say, like you said, reaching out and kind of like figuring out like all the different types and getting to know these people because, a DJ, although not as sexy as the, florals or the table things or the flower, all that is just as important to the logistics. And so just kind of being well-rounded like that and knowing enough about everything, I think is incredibly important.
No, it really is. As I said, like as you can probably tell from me talking, my background is truly operations, and so I'm used to coordinating with, even at Lewis and Clark, so many different teams. Even to put on the simplest thing, never mind like a huge wedding. And I had done, weddings in the past for family members and friends and stuff like that. Just on my own time. So it's not like when I began my career, it was just the weddings I had done, whether at Lewis and Clark or Fairmont. I mean, I had a good background in it, but I think that, it's also about, especially when you're looking at these vendors, and this goes back to your target market, finding vendors that charge a certain amount. Because I find that, somebody who is going to hire a photographer that is a lower cost, not to say that the photographer isn't good, but that's what they're comfortable charging. Those are not the people who are going to even look at me because I'm going to be completely out of their budget. Sometimes it's so hard for me too, because you really do want to, do a style shoot or work with that photographer, but you just know that the market is not going to be the same for you. Whereas, the higher end photographers, they're already established. So, for some of them, it's like, oh, I hate doing style shoots. Like, I'm so busy as it is. So it's really finding, that those people that are just game for it all. And they are out there. I will say that because I've had discussions with them and I've worked with them, and I will hopefully work with even more of them. But really finding those vendors that, hit that. And not to say, like, even from a planner coordinator standpoint, that you shouldn't have different vendors on your list that come in all different price points, because I think that is important because, one of the things I talk about with all my clients, especially during our consultation, is what are the most important elements to you of this wedding? Like, it could be the food, it could be having the best, like, an amazing videographer, it could be the floral. And the thing is that they come back at me and say, like, I want a spectacular floral arrangement that, like, oozes and ahs all of this. And I really do want a videographer, but that's really not where, like, my large chunk of my budget's going. I love me a good, video from moving pictures, but I know I'm not sending them there because they would look at the website and, be like, no, this is not for me. Whereas I look at somebody like, Northwest Film Co., Brian, or some of the others, and I'm like, you're not as expensive as some of the other ones, but you have amazing work, and that's where I need to be sending that client to. And again, with the floral, like, some of them may just say, like, I do love flowers, but that is not, like, where I really want to put my focus. There's amazing florists out here. I mean, I've worked with Bella Bloom. I've worked with Jordan over at Bloom. I've worked with Arranged for You. I've worked with a lot of them, and they're all really good. And some of them, especially with floral and especially with video and photography, I mean, there's a certain aesthetic that some of these clients are looking for within a certain budget. So, really just understanding what everybody can provide and having that conversation, and just getting to know people, because you just never know what vendor team you're going to end up with and what people are, what their strong points are. And we all have our weaknesses that we need to grow on. So just understanding that and producing an amazing event and having the client super happy. The other thing that I also think is important, and I'm only this kind of off topic, but it's come up so much, especially in Instagram and on Facebook lately with other planners, is planners and anybody else who is actually acting as a coordinator. When you are done with a styled shoot or you are done with an amazing event, whether it be wedding, corporate, doesn't matter, you should be sending an email to your vendor team with all their tags, and saying, hey, thank you for, everything went great. Here are all our tags. When we get the Dropbox or whatever link you get to all the photos and you want to post those, please credit those appropriately. That is exactly how to make those people happy so they refer you to their clients. People want to, be credited for all the hard work that they put in, whether it's an entire wedding or just a style shoot. And that's a great way, to, build that repertoire and to get more referrals your way. So sorry, I had to put that in. There's a lot of people who haven't been doing that right, and it's driving people crazy.
No, I agree. I mean, I try to do that on the front end and kind of have that all filled out, but it is so nice to, even just like we've done some open houses lately and some shows and wedding shows that way. And just, having an appropriate list, because that saves me, an hour trying to go on to figure out, okay, well, which frickin', Seattle floral design something. Okay, what's the right Facebook tag? Okay, is it this one? Is it that? Like, I'm sitting there like trying to, Sherlock Holmes it. And like, man, it would just be really easy if
and you're better than a lot of people, because some people would be like, oh, screw it, this is a photographer. And I get it. Like, listen, like typing and that stuff, like, because I am a boutique company, I am the one who does all my social media. I update my website. I do all that stuff. I don't have an assistant. I can't afford one. Maybe you can count my 4.5-year-old who tries to be mommy's helper as one. She is an amazing mommy's helper, but she cannot do that. But yeah, I mean, it's so helpful, and it allows people to say, hey, like that email, the last email that is in that folder in my inbox from that wedding that says like, here, just copy and paste this. Like, all I have to do is that. And then you just, put it in your Instagram or put it in your Facebook or wherever you're putting it. Like, I mean, some people now put this stuff on LinkedIn, which actually is great too, because you never know who's looking on LinkedIn. But yeah, people just want to be credited.
No, absolutely. I was just laughing because I haven't even gotten an email from the planner for the wedding we have this Saturday, let alone a post email. I will not be holding my breath for the post. So I said, oh, wow, I wonder when I'm going to get that email. It's now Wednesday at 8:45. So anyway, on that note, you have been so generous with your time. I know it's late on a Wednesday and scheduling and really being really flexible about coming on and making time. I do really appreciate it. I feel like we could talk for another hour, but
you need to get back to your stuff too, because I appreciate you doing this at night. It's so much easier for me. So
no, it's perfect. Like I said, I think you just have so much to say, and I really do appreciate your energy and just insights and coming on. I really do appreciate it. If people want to learn more about you and your company and everything else, where would you have them check out?
I would, number one, my website, DanielleCaldwellEvents.com. I am also on Instagram at Danielle Caldwell Events LLC. It's the same thing on Facebook. And those are the three main places. If anybody is at all interested in consultations, just go onto my website and fill out the contact sheet. It's pretty self-explanatory. So, and a big thank you to you, as I said before, and because I am on a platform, I do want to say thank you to all those vendors that have helped me, the last 3 years and grow this, and especially to honestly family and friends. You send your website when you first begin, and my mother-in-law has also been a huge help in editing tons of stuff, even though she would never want the credit, and she's probably going to yell at me when she hears this. But, it takes a village to build a company. And, I'm just really grateful for where I have ended up, and I still have tons of growth to do. I am still climbing Everest, but it's so much fun. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, perfect. I really appreciate it. If you are like Danielle and you're interested in coming on the podcast, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest. And that's a nice, easy questionnaire to kind of get you in the system. And again, thank you, Danielle. This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.